Let the meltdown begin. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network. I am Gabriel Morency. Let's do this thing as the countdown to UFC 200 officially starts this weekend. This is the biggest summer in the UFC's history by far. The UFC Fight Week, multiple cards leading up to UFC 200. I think this is sort of the unofficial, official blast off, so to speak. We got Luke Rockhold, we got Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping, I told you a couple of weeks ago, before they named the replacement opponent, that Michael Bisping deserved to be the replacement opponent. But it doesn't mean I think Michael Bisping's going to win this fight. Luke Rockhold's a 10-1 favorite. And you almost have to take Bisping in the sense that you're getting plus 600 and crazy things can happen. I know Robin Black thinks Michael Bisping has a legitimate chance of winning this fight, but does he really? I mean, Luke Rockhold's just the guy's a destroyer, man. The guy, beat Bisping with one arm last time. He beat up Chris Weidman, even though he was on antibiotics and he was sick. He wasn't even feeling well, and he still destroyed it. So we're going to break that down. We're going to cut the monologue short tonight. My feet hurt. My throat hurts. In the mortal words of Krusty the Clown, no monologue. My feet hurt. Roll the tape. So let's just bring in GambLou because we got a monster freaking card, man. And I want to talk about as many possible fights as possible with my main man, GambLou from GambLou.com. What's up, Lou?
Not too much, Gabriel. Happy to be here. You're exactly right. This is kind of the initiation to a great 5 weeks of fights coming up, and this card is loaded.
No, it really is from top to bottom. So, just like the card this past weekend was, and I apologize to the viewers at the Fight Network. We were doing real well. We were 8-1 in the last couple of weeks. We stumbled last week. It's too bad because I wanted to give Brian Caraway as a big dog, but we couldn't because we had to give the main card only. And it started off so well last week, Lou. I was crushing it early, man. I was like 5-1 at one point, 6-1, 7-1, and then a reality check late. And I've said this before, but I've really got to stick to it. I'm done with the Brazilians, man. I really am. If there's a big fight in the last year or so, the Brazilians lost that big fight, Lou. It's just the fact of the matter.
I think it's directly related to technology and new testing. Not that I'm accusing anybody of anything, but now I will. Recently, there was an article that was put out about some of the enhancements that the Russians have been commonly known to use that is now outlawed. Of course, the Russian contingent is now feeling that the West has an anti-Russian view. Let's make no mistake about this. My suspicions about the Brazilians have evaporated, and 100% of them are now squarely on the backs of the Russians.
It's interesting, but if you go down the list, like Barrow's not the same guy. Not the same. Come on, man. You got beat up by Jeremy Stevens. No disrespect to Jeremy Stevens. But, not the same guy. Thomas Almeida just absolutely overwhelmed by Garbrandt. We go down the list, man, of fighters, Brazilian fighters that's not getting it done in big fights. And this card, I don't really see too many Brazilians. Hell, I don't even know if there is any, actually, but we'll get to this. So we got Rockhold and Bisping off the top here, Lou. As I just mentioned off the top, money's coming in on Bisping a bit because instead of 10-1, it's like 8-1. But you look at Rockhold, man. The guy's won 5 fights in a row. We should add that he's finished all 5 of these fights. He beat Weidman in the 4th round. He choked out Leona Machida, choked out Michael Bisping, submitted Tim Boetsch, finished Costas Philippou. I mean, the guy's he's a killer, this guy. How do you make a case for Michael Bisping, or can you?
Yeah, I think you can. I think you can because of all the intangibles. I think you got to go back to the fact that he's way more experienced. He's been starving and clamoring vocally, and he's a vocal guy, for a championship shot for a long time, and he's taken it on 2 weeks' notice. And while everything looks to be in Rockhold's advantage, the one thing that's not in his advantage is that now he's protecting the belt, and now he's the king, and everyone's coming at him. Now, coupled on top of that is the fact that he's already beat Bisping. This could be a poor spot for Rockhold. And earlier, you mentioned Mr. Black. He was on a podcast with Dan Hardy, and if Robin Black and Dan Hardy are going to break down a fight, I'm going to listen to it. They talked about Bisping having a 2. If they fought 10 times, he'd win 2 times. I totally agree with that statement. I think there's a 20% chance, and unless the number's well over 700 or 750, we won't mess with the fight.
You know, I think you raised great points, and I brought this up as well, Lou. If you're Luke Rockhold, you know, obviously publicly he's never going to admit this, but in the back of his mind, he's thinking that this is an easy fight for him. He's thinking, I've already beaten this guy. I'm better right now than I was even when I beat him, and I only had one arm when I beat him last time. I was supposed to be fighting Chris Weidman. We've seen this before, haven't we, in a fight game? You know, when you got a champ, you know, he's going to take somebody lightly. He's already beaten them before. But I think the fact that Bisping talks so much, it almost takes away the fact that Rockhold could come in here not 100% prepared.
Yeah, I think that's the only hope emotionally, is that he's a little overconfident. Bisping, I think, is, you know, he's been a fighter his whole life. I'm not worried about timing or anything else. He's going to come out there, and I do think he's going to, you know, go straight in and take it right to him. He was competitive in their last fight until they had the headbutt, and he got a little wobbled. So it's not impossible. I'll say it like that.
No, and, you know, Michael Bisping, you know, we can't underestimate the heart, the desire, the experience, the maturity. He is a very crafty fighter right now, but I just don't see where he has the physical advantage. He needs to have Luke Rockhold to have a bad night. I think, you know, like if they were saying if Hardy and Black, you know, on the podcast we're talking about, he can win 2 out of 10 times. I think I could believe that, but no man is invincible, right? I mean, and the thing with Rockhold is, like I was saying, I almost feel obligated to do a little sprinkle on Bisping, because the thing with Rockhold is you're not laying $900 to win $100, and you're not putting him in a parlay to pick up, you know, 9 or 10 cents on the dollar here, basically. So it's really Michael Bisping or bust from a gambling perspective.
Yeah, you know, Rockhold's chin has not been tested, even though he's fought capable competition, Weidman, Machida, Bisping earlier, but lesser degree Bosch and Philippou. Vitor put him out. So if somebody can get to his chin, I'd like to see what happens when it's tested. Can Michael get inside and get that done? That's what we'll be watching to see.
All right, so I was just saying, and what about the total for this one as well? You think we're seeing a longer fight here? Bisping obviously wants to extend the fight.
Well, I don't know. On a 2-week camp, it could be that he's going to go out there and just try and get it done. I tend to think that's got to be a strategy, even though I know he's conditioned. 2 weeks won't condition anyone for 5 rounds. And so I tend to think that he may have the bulldog mentality and go right out there and try and take it to Luke and get it done right away.
You know, I don't think really Bisping has a great chance. He's got a chance, and as we see, especially when it comes to championship fights, guys don't go on long runs. Crazy stuff does happen. But with that being stated, even though, and I'm looking at an updated number right now, so it remains the same, so it's 6-1. Dominic Cruz is a smaller favorite than Luke Rockhold is, but I think that Cruz is a more decisive winner than Rockhold is. Like, if I had to pick which one is a bigger lock, and there's no such thing as a lock, the only locks that exist are, you know, on your door, but if I had to pick one, Lou, and I think this is a bigger mismatch, I don't see how Faber beats Cruz. You're an underdog bettor. What's your take here? Can you talk yourself into Faber?
I do. If I look at their second fight, the one that Faber did lose, there were times Cruz was gassing, and he did a marvelous job against TJ and really did look good, but his mouth was open a little. You know, I think this is Uriah's swan song. It's hard to make a strong case for Uriah at 400, but maybe there's enough hatred in here to get it done. But I got to be honest with you, neither Bisping or Faber are on our underdog radar for this card. You
know, you talk about the hatred. There's a lot of sort of fake, hyped-up rivalries in combat sports. But this is actually a real one. Like, this is a legitimate, these guys really just don't like each other. It almost reminds me, and I'm sure half the viewers won't know who I'm talking about, but Martina Navratilova and Chris Everett, Lou. Remember in tennis? And, there was a
Came from two different worlds, you bet.
Yeah, and there was a great SNL skit in which, years later, even when, like, Chris Everett's retired and she's jogging, Martina shows up and, hey, I just ran a marathon in 2 hours. How you doing? You just see these guys in 20 years not liking each other, like competing on a golf course. You know what I'm saying? They just don't like each other, these two guys, in a competitive way. I can do it better than you type of deal.
Yeah, and as intelligent as Cruz is and as capable a fighter, I really don't think the trash talking comes natural. I think he's manufacturing that.
Yeah.
And, to me, maybe he's just pissing off Faber, and who knows? It'll be interesting to watch. I'll be pulling for Faber, I'll say that.
Pulling for Faber, big favorite here. I think Cruz is going to win. I think Rockhold's going to win, but both extremely big faves. All right, so let's talk about some of the other fights in which the numbers aren't quite as big. I'm a big Dan Henderson fan, great guy, legend of the sport, Hall of Famer, but he's 2-6 in his last 8 fights. He can still surprise people every now and then, but I think he's better off. Like, look, he caught Tim Boetsch, but Tim Boetsch is a lumbering dude, man. Tim Boetsch is a moving, walking tree. Hector Lombard, Lombard's like a bowling ball shot out of a cannon, Lou. Like, I actually think Dan Henderson could get his head taken off here and actually I think this could be it. Like, he gets hurt type of deal. He's a witty guy. He's a funny guy, Dan Henderson. I want him to stay this way. If he gets his head taken off, I hope he retires here, Lou. And if he wants to still fight gas cans. Go fight tomato cans somewhere else than the UFC and make money still. He could do that. Hector Lombard's not a tomato can, man. Hector Lombard's going to try to take his head off, and I think he will.
Lombard needs the win. Nobody has more respect for Dan Henderson, the person, or the fighter, and for what he's done for this sport overall than me. But I've been watching fighters for 40 years, and I agree with you. It's not mine to suggest what Dan Henderson does with his career, his family, and his life. Myself, I'm glad he beat Boetsch. I wish he'd retire. I don't like this matchup at all. Sure, Lombard will gas against a guy like Magny, but against a guy like Dan Henderson, who's entering the octagon at 45 years old, I'm scared. I hope the thing turns grappling and ugly as a boring fight, and somehow Hendo doesn't get hurt. But I love the guy, and I just think he's fighting too late, and that's just my 2 cents.
No, but you're right, Lou. I'm one of these guys, too. I never look. We had Dan Severn on a couple of weeks ago on the program, and he still wants to fight. We have Ken Shamrock. I'm of the belief is, too. I'm not going to tell another grown man what to do, and I'm not going to tell another athlete what to do if they still think they can perform. But I like what Dan Severn said when I said, because he had a fight, he wanted to fight Shamrock, and it fell through, and he was going to fight Tank Abbott, and but I asked him, I said, so are you dying to fight? What's the deal type of deal? And he said, no, I'm not, he said, I want to fight. I want to compete. But he said, I don't think I can fight Stipe Miocic, like he knows who he is. He said, I want to fight one of these other old guys that's still fighting. That's different. That's different. Like, I'm not going to, you should retire, Dan Severn. It's the same thing with Henderson. If Henderson, go fight and, fight on a regional thing, set it up and fight a guy and make money for it. But fighting Hector Lombard at this stage is just dangerous, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it is. I think, I totally agree with everything. Make a senior circuit, fight guys your own capability. But Dan's confident and he's capable, and he still thinks he's of this capability. And I think we'll find out differently on Saturday night.
When I lived in Vegas, Lou, Frank Trigg was the co-host of MMA Meltdown. And I once told him on the air that there should be a seniors MMA circuit, and he laughed so hard. He told me, Morency, you've had a lot of dumb ideas in your life, but this is the dumbest idea ever. He's like, who the hell wants to watch two 51-year-old fighters fight? Well, 2.4 million people on Spike Television, too. So, evidently.
Yeah, especially you get a Randy Couture, or you get, Chuck Liddell, and not to say any of these guys are considering it, but you put a couple names out there, and I'll be doggone, I'm watching.
That's what I'm saying. Like Dan Henderson versus Randy Couture. I live with that more than Dan Henderson versus Hector Lombard at this point in time. All right, we take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll get into some fights where we can actually lay some money, where there's some reasonable numbers. Maybe Lou's got a couple of dogs. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network continues.